Apple is one of the largest tech companies in the world, but recently it has been facing challenges, particularly in Europe. Not long ago, Europe established a series of sanctions targeting gatekeeping companies. What does this mean? Essentially, companies that try to monopolize a market by using their technology as an exclusive tool will face sanctions. The Digital Markets Act, or DMA, introduces numerous regulations that seem specifically aimed at companies like Apple, and this is no coincidence. We will explore why this is happening and how it could potentially force Apple out of Europe. So, what is the DMA and why is it relevant? Before we dive deeper, we need to understand what's happening in Europe and why these regulations are hitting American tech companies so hard. The Digital Markets Act, or DMA, is a European regulation designed to make the digital and tech economy much fairer. This regulation came into effect on November 1, 2022, but it wasn't fully enforceable until May 2, 2023. Many businesses, including European ones, are still adapting to these new rules, which is why many companies have delayed launching new products in the European market. So, how does the DMA affect the digital market? The regulations are designed to prevent large companies from abusing their market power. 6 key companies have been designated as gatekeepers: Alphabet, Amazon, Apple, ByteDance, Meta, and Microsoft. These companies are considered gatekeepers because they have a firm grip on the tech market and operate almost like monopolies in their respective fields. The EU has identified them as core platform services, which means they must comply with all of the Act's provisions. The challenges begin with the extensive list of obligations these companies must meet. For example, the DMA prohibits the combining of data collection from 2 different services owned by the same company. This means Meta cannot merge data collected from Facebook and Instagram. Companies that gather data across multiple platforms or have a significant market share are the most affected. In other words, Europe aims to level the playing field for smaller businesses and startups. Understanding this can be complex, so let's add some context. Most of the tech products we use today come from the US or China. The largest tech companies are, again, from Asia or the US. A European platform that is widely used, like Spotify, is relatively small compared to Apple Music or YouTube Music. There's little innovation coming from Europe, and these regulations may not improve the situation in the long run. The DMA particularly affects Apple because it imposes strict limitations on its AI capabilities and allows fines of up to 10% or 20% of global revenue for gatekeeper companies from the US like Apple. This combination of setbacks means that they may be unable to update certain systems, potentially causing their overall revenue to decline significantly. This doesn't seem ideal, does it? Recently, Apple announced its new Apple Intelligence, or native AI features. Siri will be significantly improved, and users will enjoy better interactions between native apps like Calendar, Mail, and more, along with new features like custom emojis. However, Apple also announced that many of these new features won't be launched in Europe, forcing European users to endure the absence of these updates. Europe is not a small market for Apple, so this raises concerns, especially among loyal customers. Many updates won't reach this market. Much development will be delayed, and many users will miss out on improvements. While some regulation of AI is necessary, this approach overlooks the most critical risks posed by AI and misses the mark. So now the question, why do companies need regulations? The gatekeeper companies mentioned by the Digital Markets Act, or DMA, are near monopolies that control a large portion of the tech market, according to the European Union. Companies like Apple, Amazon, and Google dominate their platforms and often act as gatekeepers for new developers. Or do they? For example, the Apple App Store is open to new creators. However, the reality is that many big companies essentially own every piece of information on their devices, or control everything done with their software. Some view the situation as problematic, and the DMA aims to address it, at least attempt to address it. For instance, consumers users have the right to install apps from any service they choose, including alternative app stores, and most companies offer some way to allow this. While these implementations may not be perfect, they do provide partial freedom, especially in Apple's case. Moreover, consumers also have control over their data and the right to transfer their information between different services. The DMA also promises more opportunities for small businesses in the EU, potentially boosting innovation where it has been lacking. While these regulations sound promising, they also create a challenging environment for profit for these US-based companies. Take Apple and Android, for example. Google and Apple both have their own marketplaces where developers must pay to list their apps, and which provide the companies with access to all the data they collect. The EU's new marketplace aims to offer a more developer-friendly environment, fostering growth and innovation, according to them. However, while this might not significantly impact these companies' profits, it will limit their access to the data they could otherwise leverage. Now, let's talk about how Apple clashes with the DMA. As mentioned, the biggest issues for Apple under the DMA are the setbacks to their native AI, which cannot be distributed and is effectively inoperable in the EU, and the fines imposed by the EU. The EU anticipates that many new businesses will develop and offer innovative services to users that will function on default operating systems like iOS, Android, and Windows. However, this is easier said than done. Why? Because without the market being gate-kept, the EU believes that there will be alternative services that are free of charge and capable of handling all the data managed by apps like Siri or Apple Mail. This sounds simple, just transfer your data and you're done. But in reality, it's not that straightforward. Transferring data from one service to another involves significant coding and adjustments. Without getting into technical details, developers will still need to work closely with Apple. To comply, Apple may have to overhaul its infrastructure to allow users to download their data. This raises a significant security issue because such changes could make data more vulnerable. The DMA could inadvertently create new security problems, as data encryption requires companies to provide all collected data via stable APIs, which are often under company control. Transferring information between systems can be a nightmare. These changes could complicate daily usage for product owners. Allowing third-party apps to integrate with native system apps presents a significant security risk, which most companies will want to avoid. As a result, Apple may refrain from releasing several services in the EU, including those focused on native AI. In the long run, other companies may follow suit, possibly even withdrawing their products from the European market altogether. This raises an important question. What is more important to Europe, its regulations or its business environment? In the end, what could have been a useful initiative might end up hurting consumers, prompting companies to shift to more promising markets.